How to not look like a complete beginner. If you're anything like me, then you don't really care what other people think about you, especially when it comes to skateboarding. But then again, for some reason, whenever I'm skating down the street or across a crosswalk, I can't help but feel like every random old lady or person that I can't even see in a car is judging me.
What is the matter with you?
And this is usually when I try to do something cool and end up looking like an idiot. But there are things you can do in order to elevate your casual, everyday skating down the road, in order to look like you know what you're doing and hopefully not look like someone who's never seen a skateboard before. Oh yeah, and really quick, there's nothing wrong with looking like a beginner, especially if you are one, but I thought I'd just give some tips and things you can work on to help maybe boost your confidence and skating. So up first, we have getting on your board. The way you get on your board can be a dead giveaway to how experienced you are on a skateboard. Usually you'll see the extremely new skaters carefully placing their board on the ground and setting up their feet and then start to push. Well, if you want to look a bit more comfortable, the best way to do it is to learn to throw down the board while running and then jumping on. Not only will this make you look like you know what you're doing, but it's also an easy and fun way to gain speed quickly. Just make sure you're comfortable riding first and then practice throwing your board down as you run forward and then jumping on with your front foot first and start pushing. Next up, we have picking up your board. I've covered a few ways to pick up your board in the past. Some are cool and useful, and others are more for show than they are practical. But the main point is that when you're done riding and you're ready to pick up your board, there are ways to do it that make you look like a skater, and then there's the other ways that someone who's never skated might try. The most basic pickup is where you press down on your tail, and as it pops up, you grab it by the nose. Comparing this to the alternative of stopping, getting off your board, and picking it up, you can see the difference in the vibe it gives off. Also, you could learn faster ways of stopping and picking up your board, like the nose pickup, which is my personal favorite. And for the next one, we have slowing down. There are a lot of ways to slow down. Some are cool, and some ruin your shoes or board. Knowing how to slow down in a controlled and stylish manner not only makes you look like you know what you're doing on a board, but in some cases, like a power slide, can also be considered a trick. Power slides are one of the cooler ways you can slow down, and when implemented in bombing a hill, can be pretty useful. You can also try swerving from side to side, or if you're cruising, sliding the bottom of your shoe always works too. What you don't want to do is drag the toe of your shoe or the tail of your board on the ground, which will cause you to wear them down pretty quickly. And next we have stopping. Just like with slowing down, there are several ways to stop while you're riding. Some of these are also ways to pick up your board at the same time and can be pretty cool. Mainly, what you'll want to avoid is being the guy that has to jump off into the grass when you're going too fast, or worse yet, just running into something. The easiest way to do this is to use one of the methods I said before for slowing down first, and then when you're at a comfortable pace, just sort of push your board forward a little with your front foot as you step off, and then as your foot goes over the tail, just push down and pick up. Up next, we have pushing. When it comes to pushing, there's a very particular way that you can spot someone who's been skating for a while versus someone who's pretty new to the board. And no, it's not just Mongo pushing. People who aren't on a board much tend to do this thing where they don't put all their weight onto their front foot, but rather keep switching it back and forth when they push. It's almost like they have a ski under one of their feet and they're slowly pushing it along. The key to getting a good push, which also means more speed, control, and style, is keeping all of your weight over your foot that's on the board and only slightly letting off when you push off the ground. Also, using your leg that's pushing fully by extending it ahead of you and getting a full push, rather than just giving little baby pushes, helps a lot. And for the next one, we have two-wheeling. Learning how to maneuver your board on two wheels can be extremely helpful. And I'm not just talking about manuals here. Kick turns and pivots can come in handy even if you're just cruising down the road and need to quickly avoid something. And learning how to manual, even if they're really short, can help you get over bigger cracks in the sidewalk or down curbs. You can tell a skater from someone who is just on a skateboard by what they do when they get to a curb. Either they step off their board and push it down, or they roll off like they didn't even notice it. Up next, we have ollies. Now, I didn't want to get too much into actual tricks, but an ollie is basically the starting point for everything else. And if you were to only learn one trick on a skateboard, I would say it should be an ollie. An ollie is pretty much the most versatile trick you can learn, and it can just be used in so many ways to help out when you're skating down the street. Whether it's ollieing up curbs, popping over cracks, or just showing off, learning ollies will definitely make you look like you know what you're doing. Even if you don't have these very good at first, it only takes an inch to get over a crack and about 6 inches to get up a curb. and it's definitely a good way to impress that random old lady. Next, we have Talk the Talk. Now, this one isn't about what you're actually doing on a skateboard, but rather just knowing about the basics and what you're talking about. Was that a laser flip? It's okay to not know every trick name or frontside and backside at first, but if you don't, just make sure you don't go calling people out for things when you're not really sure. Some of the main things to know would be what all of the skateboard parts are, the basic tricks like kick flips and heel flips, the stances, and the rotation directions. From there, it's just a matter of putting them together in different combinations, and then you should sound at least halfway knowledgeable. Yeah, I usually like to skate switch nollie. And lastly we have, don't be a poser. Just kidding. Kind of. I debated whether or not to put this in, but I figure even if I don't condone or agree with people who hate on others, it's still something that happens in the skate world, so I thought I'd point out a few of the no-nos that may get you called out. Mall grabbing, Mongo pushing, helmets, thrasher, scooters. These are just a few of the things that get hated on in the skate community. I personally don't care and think everyone should just do what makes them happy, but you should be aware and prepared for possible backlash when you do any of those things. In reality, most real and older skaters don't care about this stuff, but if you're young and impressionable, it's easy to get caught up in the fashion of skateboarding rather than the skateboarding itself. So basically, this whole video was just pointing out a few things that if you didn't know any other things about skateboarding, but you worked just on these things, then the average person who sees you skating down the street wouldn't know the difference. Like I said in the beginning, there's nothing wrong with looking like a beginner, especially if you are one. But if you're crazy like me and you think everyone's watching and laughing when you fall while riding off a curb, then learning these things can definitely help you feel a little bit more confident. So as always, I'd like to thank my wonderful Patreon pledgers. They keep the shoes on my feet and my feet on the board. And I would also like to thank you for watching, and you can like and subscribe if you want.